For centuries, humanity has asked one of the most profound and mysterious questions. What is God? Is he a distant force, an invisible presence, or something beyond human comprehension? Philosophers, theologians, and scholars have debated this for generations, yet the answer remains hidden to most. But what if the Bible already holds the truth that few have dared to explore? The Scriptures describe God as infinite, eternal, and all-powerful, a being who existed before time itself. But unlike the gods of myths and legends, he is not just an idea or an abstract force. He is a personal, living presence that reveals himself to those who seek him. However, many people go through life without ever understanding his true essence. They see religion as rules and rituals, but knowing God is far greater than mere traditions. Imagine trying to explain the vastness of the universe to an ant. This is how limited human understanding is when it comes to God. Yet, in his mercy, he left clues, revelations, and undeniable signs of his presence in the world around us. The problem is that many are too distracted, too consumed by earthly concerns to see them. But what if we could break past these limitations? What if there is a way to truly understand who God is, not just intellectually, but spiritually? The answer lies in the Scriptures, in the words of prophets, and in the very nature of creation itself. This is not just another discussion. This is a revelation that has the power to transform your life. So, prepare yourself to uncover the most astonishing truth about God, one that could forever change the way you see the world, your faith, and your purpose. The human mind is limited, yet it constantly seeks to understand the divine. The Bible makes it clear, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." Isaiah 55 verse 8. This means that God's ways operate on a level beyond human comprehension. When things don't make sense, when prayers seem unanswered, it's not that God is absent. It's that his plan is far greater than what we can grasp. Consider the story of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, imprisoned unfairly. To human eyes, his life seemed to spiral into disaster. But behind the scenes, God was orchestrating events to place him as a ruler in Egypt, saving an entire nation from famine. What seemed like misfortune was, in reality, divine positioning. How often do we fail to see God's hand in our struggles, simply because his methods don't align with our expectations? Many question God when suffering strikes. Why does evil exist? Why do the righteous face hardship? These are age-old questions, but Scripture reminds us that God's wisdom surpasses human reasoning. Job, despite his trials, declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." Job 13 verse 15. His story reveals that faith is not about understanding everything. It's about trusting the one who does. If we only believed in what we understood, our faith would be weak. God's actions often seem mysterious, but those who trust him eventually see his plan unfold with perfect timing. It's like looking at the back of a tapestry. On one side, it looks like a mess of tangled threads, but on the other, a masterpiece is being created. Life is like that. What seems chaotic now may later be revealed as part of God's perfect design. That's why the key to spiritual growth is surrender. Instead of demanding answers, we should seek a deeper relationship with God. When faith matures, it no longer requires constant explanations. It simply trusts. But understanding this truth is only the beginning. What happens when we confront the reality of our own limitations? Humanity often overestimates its own wisdom. We build great cities, advance technology, and unravel scientific mysteries, yet we remain unable to answer life's deepest questions. Where did we come from? What happens after death? Why do we exist? These are things that human intellect alone cannot solve. Compared to the vastness of God's knowledge, our understanding is like a child playing by the shore of an endless ocean, able to grasp only the surface. This is why humility is crucial in spiritual growth. Those who assume they have everything figured out often miss the most profound truths. The Bible teaches that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Proverbs 9 verse 10. Recognizing our own limitations opens the door to divine revelation. The greatest minds in history, from philosophers to scientists, have wrestled with the mysteries of existence, yet God's truth remains beyond human reasoning. Imagine a person trying to explain a three-dimensional world to a creature that only understands two dimensions. No matter how much effort is put into explaining, the limited being will never fully comprehend what it cannot experience. That is how humans relate to God. We see only a fragment, a shadow of the true reality. The Apostle Paul described it as seeing through a glass darkly, 1 Corinthians 13 verse 12, emphasizing that our knowledge is incomplete. The complexity of God should not discourage us, but rather inspire awe. If God were easily understandable, he would not be divine. He would be limited, just like us. Instead of trying to fit God into human logic, faith requires us to trust in what we do not yet fully comprehend. History shows that those who embraced divine wisdom achieved what others deemed impossible. This is why faith is not about certainty. It is about trust. Accepting that we cannot fully understand God is the first step to truly knowing Him. But if humanity is so limited, how can we relate to a being so vast? This leads us to a deeper question. What is the nature of God Himself? Many people imagine God as a glorified human, but He is not limited by physical form, emotions, or weaknesses like we are. The Bible makes it clear, God is not a man that He should lie, nor a son of man that He should change His mind. Numbers 23:19. Unlike humans, God does not act out of impulse, nor is He confined by time or space. He exists beyond what we can measure or fully comprehend. This is why God does not depend on anything. He is entirely self-sufficient, needing neither rest nor sustenance. While humans must eat, sleep, and grow, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13 verse 8. If He needed something, He would cease to be God. His power and wisdom do not fluctuate. He does not evolve. He simply is. Imagine trying to explain the concept of color to someone born blind. No matter how many words you use, the experience is beyond their perception. Similarly, when people attempt to reduce God to human terms, they strip away His divine nature. He is not just a superior being. He is beyond being. The very name He gives to Moses, I am that I am, Exodus 3 verse 14, signifies His eternal, unchanging existence. While humans are bound by emotions that shift with circumstances, God's character remains steady and just. He is not swayed by flattery, bribery, or manipulation. His judgment is pure, and His love is untainted by selfishness. Understanding this helps us trust that God's decisions are based on divine wisdom, not human limitations. If God is so far beyond us, how can we ever hope to relate to Him? The answer is found in the way He chooses to reveal Himself. From creation to Christ, God reaches down to humanity, making the infinite accessible to the finite. This opens the door to one of the most profound aspects of faith. How does God make Himself known to us? Throughout the Bible, God's presence is described as overwhelming, consuming, and impossible for humans to endure in its fullness. When Moses asked to see God's glory, he was told that no one could see God's face and live. Exodus 33 verse 20. This is not because God is cruel, but because His divine presence is so pure, powerful, and holy that human bodies cannot withstand it. Think about the sun. Its warmth gives life, but if you were to approach too closely, you would be destroyed. In the same way, God's holiness is so intense that it would consume anything impure. This is why, when Isaiah had a vision of the Lord, he cried out, "Woe to me! "I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips." Isaiah 6 verse 5. Even a righteous prophet like Isaiah trembled before God's presence. The few instances where people encountered even a glimpse of God's presence left them shaken. The Israelites, when hearing God's voice at Mount Sinai, begged Moses to speak on their behalf because they feared dying from the experience. Exodus 20 verse 19. When Daniel had a vision of the divine, he collapsed as though he had no strength left in him. Daniel 10 verse 8. These reactions show that the glory of God is beyond human endurance. However, God does not desire to remain distant. Throughout history, He has found ways to reveal Himself without consuming those who seek Him. He appeared to Moses in a burning bush, spoke through prophets, and ultimately revealed Himself through Jesus Christ, who made God accessible. This leads to a profound revelation. If God's presence is so overwhelming, how can we ever hope to be near Him? Despite His overwhelming power and holiness, God deeply desires a relationship with humanity. From the very beginning, He created mankind not as distant subjects, but as beings meant to walk in close fellowship with Him. This is evident in the Garden of Eden, where God walked with Adam and Eve before sin created a barrier. Genesis 3 verse 8. Ever since, God has been reaching out to restore this connection. Throughout history, we see that God does not impose His presence, but invites humanity to seek Him. In Jeremiah 29 verse 13, He declares, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." This shows that God is not far from those who genuinely desire to know Him. He calls people to Himself, not through force, but through love, grace, and truth. A personal relationship with God transforms lives. Those who walk closely with Him experience peace, purpose, and spiritual fulfillment. This relationship is not based on religious rituals, but on genuine communication. God speaks through the Scriptures, through prayer, and through the quiet moments of reflection. Many who once felt lost find renewed strength when they surrender to His presence. However, just as any relationship requires commitment, walking with God requires trust and obedience. Jesus emphasized this when He said, "If you love me, keep my commandments." John 14 verse 15. Faith is not just about believing that God exists. It is about walking with Him daily, trusting that He has a plan for our lives. This leads to a powerful truth. If God truly desires a relationship with us, how can we respond to His invitation? Throughout the Bible, we find examples of men and women who experienced deep intimacy with God. One of the most remarkable cases is Moses, a man who spoke with God as one speaks with a friend. Exodus 33 verse 11. After spending time in God's presence on Mount Sinai, his face shone so brightly that the Israelites were afraid to look at him. Exodus 34 verses 29 to 30. This is the impact of true closeness to God. It changes everything. Another profound example is David, known as a man after God's own heart. 1 Samuel 13 verse 14. Despite his flaws, he had an unshakable passion for God, pouring out his heart through the Psalms. He danced before the Lord without shame, seeking God's presence above his own reputation. 2 Samuel 6 verse 14. His relationship with God was not about perfection, but about sincerity. We also see intimacy with God in the story of Enoch, a man so close to the Lord that he never experienced death. Genesis 5 verse 24 says, "Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away." This is a profound mystery, showing that those who truly walk with God experience a connection beyond this world. In the New Testament, we find the disciples of Jesus experiencing intimacy with God in the most personal way possible. They walked, talked, and ate with Jesus, who was the very image of the invisible God. Colossians 1 verse 15. John, known as the beloved disciple, leaned on Jesus during the Last Supper, showing how close their relationship was. John 13 verse 23. These examples reveal something extraordinary. God is not distant. He is personal, present, and desiring a deep connection with those who seek Him. But how does this intimacy manifest in the modern world? One of the greatest revelations in history is that Jesus Christ made God accessible to humanity. Before Jesus, people saw God as distant, holy, and beyond human reach. However, through Christ, God stepped into the world in a form that people could understand, touch, and relate to. John 1 verse 14 declares, "The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us." This changed everything. Jesus did not come to establish a religion, but to restore a lost relationship. While religious leaders of His time focused on rituals and laws, Jesus sat with sinners, healed the broken, and taught about God's love in a way that ordinary people could grasp. His life was the perfect demonstration of God's nature, merciful, patient, and just. Through His words and actions, Jesus revealed the heart of the Father. He showed that God is not just a distant ruler, but a loving Father who cares deeply for His children. In John 14 verse 9, Jesus told His disciples, "Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father." This means that when we look at Jesus, His compassion, His miracles, His sacrifice, we see the very essence of God. But Jesus did more than just reveal God. He became the bridge that allows us to connect with Him. Through His death and resurrection, He removed the barrier of sin that once separated humanity from the Creator. Now, through faith in Christ, anyone can enter into a personal relationship with God without fear or condemnation. This leads to a powerful question. If Jesus made God accessible, how are we responding to this invitation? Faith is not just a belief. It is a journey that shapes, refines, and transforms those who walk in it. Many people start with questions, doubts, or struggles, but as they seek God, their lives begin to change in ways they never imagined. The Bible is filled with stories of individuals who experienced radical transformations because they trusted in God's promises. Take Abraham, for example. He was called to leave everything behind and step into the unknown, simply trusting that God had a greater plan. His faith led him to become the father of nations, showing that obedience to God brings incredible rewards. Then there's Paul, a man who once persecuted Christians but had his entire life changed after encountering Jesus. He went from being a feared enemy of the church to one of its greatest apostles. Faith is also about endurance. There will be times of doubt, waiting, and challenges, but those who remain steadfast experience breakthroughs. Think of Joseph, who was betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave, and imprisoned unjustly. Yet, through faith, he rose to become the ruler of Egypt. His hardships were part of God's greater purpose. The journey of faith is not about having all the answers, but about learning to trust even when things don't make sense. Those who deepen their relationship with God find that He is constantly working behind the scenes. Every trial, every delay, and every challenge becomes an opportunity for growth and preparation. So, if faith transforms lives, the real question is, how is your journey shaping you? What changes is God leading you through today? Understanding who God is and how He reveals Himself changes everything. It is not just a theological discussion, but a personal, life-altering revelation. The more we seek, the more we realize that God's presence is everywhere, guiding, transforming, and calling us to a deeper relationship. He is not distant. He is near, waiting for those willing to open their hearts. What have you learned about God today? Have you ever experienced His presence in ways you couldn't explain? Maybe there were moments in your life when things seemed impossible, yet everything worked out in ways you never expected. These are not coincidences. They are signs of God's hand moving in your life. The key is not just knowing about God, but experiencing Him. Faith is a journey, and each step taken in trust brings deeper understanding, peace, and strength. If today's message has stirred something in your heart, maybe it's time to seek Him in a new way, to listen more carefully, and to allow Him to reveal even greater things to you. God continues to speak, guide, and transform. Are you ready to listen? If this message has blessed you, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss more powerful teachings like this. Your support helps spread the word, and together we can reach even more people with these life-changing truths.